Welcome to our Bible Stories series. Today, we're diving into the dramatic tale of Gideon, a reluctant hero who, with God's help, led Israel to an incredible victory. This story, found in the book of Judges, chapters 6 and 7, is full of doubt, faith, and divine intervention. Our story begins in a dark time for the Israelites. The people had strayed from their faith, turning their backs on the God who had led them out of Egypt. Instead, they embraced false idols, carved images of wood and stone. But their actions would not go unanswered. The Lord, in his wisdom, allowed a great trial to befall his chosen people. From the east came the Midianites, a fierce and ruthless tribe. For 7 long years, the Midianites descended upon the land of Israel like locusts. Each harvest season, they would sweep in, their camels and warriors darkening the horizon. Fields of golden grain, carefully tended vineyards, and lush olive groves, all fell victim to their ravenous appetite for destruction. Imagine, if you will, the despair of the Israelite farmer. After months of backbreaking labor, he watches helplessly as the invaders trample his crops and drive off his precious livestock. The bounty meant to feed his family through the winter is gone in an instant. The once proud people of Israel, descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, were reduced to hiding like animals. They sought refuge in mountain clefts and caves, huddled in darkness, fearing the next Midianite raid. In those cold, damp hiding places, the Israelites remembered their God. They cried out to him, their voices hoarse with anguish. "Lord," they pleaded, "have you forgotten us? We have sinned, but please deliver us from this torment." Little did they know, their cries had been heard. God's plan for deliverance was already in motion, and an unlikely hero was about to emerge from the most unexpected of places. It was in this context that we meet Gideon, a young man from the tribe of Manasseh. One day, while secretly threshing wheat in a winepress to hide it from the Midianites, an angel of the Lord appeared to him. The angel addressed Gideon as a mighty man of valor, a title that puzzled the young man who saw himself as the least in his father's house. Gideon, filled with doubt, questioned the angel. He asked why, if the Lord was truly with them, they were suffering under Midianite oppression. Where were the miracles their ancestors had spoken of? The Lord, turning to Gideon, gave him a mission: to save Israel from the Midianites. Despite his protests of inadequacy, God assured Gideon of his presence and promised victory. Still doubtful, Gideon asked for a sign. He prepared an offering of meat and bread, which the angel consumed with fire that sprang from a rock. This miraculous event confirmed to Gideon that he had indeed seen the angel of the Lord face to face. Fearing death from this divine encounter, Gideon was reassured by God, who said, "Peace be with you. Do not fear, you shall not die." That same night, God instructed Gideon to tear down his father's altar to Baal and cut down the wooden image beside it. In its place, Gideon was to build an altar to the Lord and offer a sacrifice. Fearing reprisal, Gideon carried out this task at night with the help of 10 servants. The next morning, the townspeople discovered the destroyed altar and demanded Gideon's death. However, Gideon's father, Joash, defended his son with clever reasoning. If Baal was truly a god, he should be able to defend himself. This event earned Gideon the name Jerubbaal, meaning, "Let Baal plead against him." As the Midianites and their allies gathered for battle, the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon. He blew a trumpet, rallying his clan, the Abiezrites, behind him. He then sent messengers throughout Manasseh, Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, gathering an army to face the enemy. Still seeking confirmation of God's promise, Gideon requested 2 more signs involving a fleece of wool. First, he asked that dew appear only on the fleece while the ground remained dry. When this occurred, he then asked for the opposite, a dry fleece and dew-covered ground. God graciously provided both signs, confirming his choice of Gideon as Israel's deliverer. In the shadow of Mount Gilead, an army gathered. Gideon, once a fearful man hiding in a winepress, stood tall as the leader of Israel's forces. The air was thick with anticipation as they prepared to face the mighty Midianites. But the Lord had other plans. "Your army is too large, Gideon," God declared. "Israel must know it is I who saves them, not their own strength." With these words, a test of faith began. Gideon, his heart pounding, called out to his men, "Whoever is afraid, leave now." In a shocking turn, 22,000 warriors turned back, leaving only 10,000 to face the vast Midianite horde. But God was not finished. He ordered Gideon to bring his men to the water's edge for a final, crucial test. As the soldiers drank, Gideon watched intently. Those who lapped the water like dogs were set apart, a mere 300 men. The rest were sent home. Gideon's army, once vast, was now a tiny band of warriors. Under the cover of night, God spoke again. "Go down to the enemy camp. Victory awaits you there." Gideon, his courage wavering, snuck into the Midianite camp with his servant. The valley below teemed with enemies, their camels as numerous as the sand on the seashore. In the darkness, they overheard two Midianite soldiers discussing a dream, a loaf of barley bread tumbling into their camp, destroying a tent. The interpretation sent chills down Gideon's spine. This is nothing else but the sword of Gideon. God has delivered Midian into his hands. Emboldened by this divine sign, Gideon rushed back to his men. He divided his small force into 3 companies, arming each warrior not with swords, but with trumpets, empty pitchers, and torches. Their unusual weapons gleamed in the moonlight as Gideon outlined his audacious plan. As the middle watch began, Gideon and his men crept to the edge of the enemy camp. Suddenly, the night erupted into chaos. Trumpets blared, pitchers shattered, and torches flared to life. 300 voices roared as one. "The sword of the Lord and of Gideon!" The Midianite camp exploded into panic. In the confusion, the Lord turned the Midianites against each other. Swords clashed as friend attacked friend, the entire army fleeing in terror. Gideon's men stood firm, their battle cry echoing across the valley as the enemy dissolved before their eyes. But Gideon wasn't content with merely routing the enemy. He sent messengers racing through the mountains of Ephraim, calling for reinforcements to cut off the Midianites' escape. The men of Israel responded, seizing the watering places and fording points along the Jordan River. The pursuit was relentless. 2 Midianite princes, Oreb and Zeb, were captured in the chaos. Oreb met his end at a rock that would forever bear his name, while Zeb breathed his last at a winepress. Their heads were brought to Gideon as grisly trophies of victory. As dawn broke, the scale of the triumph became clear. The mighty Midianite army, once as numerous as locusts, lay broken and scattered. Israel stood victorious, and at their head stood Gideon, no longer the least of his family, but a mighty warrior chosen by God. This story of Gideon illustrates themes of divine calling, human doubt, and God's patience. It shows how God can use even the most unlikely individuals to accomplish his purposes, and how he is willing to meet people in their uncertainty, providing reassurance and signs to bolster their faith. Gideon's journey from a fearful man hiding in a winepress to a leader ready to face a powerful enemy exemplifies the transformative power of God's calling and presence.